for the featured review and for this, like we've said, it is a cager. It is Longlegs. If we're doing a cager, it's got to go to Todd first. Todd, tell us all about Longlegs and what you thought.
All right, Longlegs is directed by Osgood Perkins, and he is a Hollywood legacy, the son of Anthony Perkins, and clearly he has an affinity for these like classic films in the genre. I was thinking a lot of like Korean thrillers, but he does like draw influence from a lot of old horror thriller mysteries. But it is about this FBI agent, Lee Harker, which is a great name, and it's played by Maika Monroe. And she seems to have a sort of sixth sense when in like sniffing out criminals. So she's put on this notorious serial killer case by her agent, her superior agent, Agent Carter, played by Blair Underwood. And the case kind of spans decades, and it's this Zodiac killer type with notes left behind that are encrypted with satanic symbols and signed by Longlegs. And Longlegs is Oscar winner Nicolas Cage. And his appearance and voice is like everything. It's something. And it was kept from the audience for like a while. And including, it didn't show him in the trailer much at all or in any of the marketing. And so I don't really want to get into it necessarily because like the sheer uneasiness and surprise of his presence is wild. And but anyway, Harker digs deeper into the case and realizes some personal connection to the killer. And it becomes a vintage sort of story, like a horror story in the vein of like Seven or The Silence of the Lambs in its setup. And the movie is more sinister than it is spooky. It isn't really necessarily a horror movie. It's more like upsetting and unsettling in its imagery and themes than it is having jump scares and stuff. And holy hell, Nicolas Cage, like he's insane in this. I didn't really need to be Cage, so I don't know why he's stuck doing like horror movies and westerns and stuff lately. But I mean, if it keeps attaching himself to Mandy and this and Butcher's Crossing, I'm okay with it. But like, man, he is next level in this. Maika Monroe has a really great like worried face that she wears throughout the movie, and it kind of reminds me of like Florence Pugh or something. She could have that kind of career. I thought she would get a lot more work after It Follows, but she really hasn't. But I think this is like a surprise hit. It's like $20 million for like a $3 million budget or whatever, like a huge hit. I mean, maybe this will be the key to getting her like even more like great roles. And there's a meticulousness to the story, and then that's what makes it work. It's a detective story, sure, but like it has the tendencies of like The Conjuring or something with the demonic stuff, but it's more about the occult than it is about like actual demon possession. And the details are not really easy to unpack. Like for the entirety of the movie, you don't really know what you're watching, but it's effective and it's demented. Like the actual story beats, I think, are what hold it back. Though there are contrivances. It's a bit too much explanation. It's similar to like the end of Psycho or whatever. It tells you basically everything, which is it takes away a little bit from what before it would like the execution was like really really spot on. And I think it's the most sinister and dread-inducing movie since Midsommar. I put it in the category as the same as like Drag Me to Hell, where it was like a spin on a worn genre, and it's done with precision and skill. And there's some questionable screenwriting, but it still feels like something new because it was done so well by the director. And now I had a weird experience watching this because there was in the middle of the movie, it was like a pivotal scene and the power went out. And we all kind of sat in darkness, silent, afraid to move. And this was like a kind of a half full theater or something. And then like a minute later, somebody like pops their head in by the projectors, like, "Oh, we had a power surge. Bear with us for a few minutes." And we sat there until the power came back on, and then the movie started up again. And I was like, that was the like creepiest thing given what was going on the screen. That kind of helped my experience a little bit because it amplified the mood. It was super weird. Maybe we need more audience interaction type stuff like that going forward. I'm at a high 3 stars. I could easily have it go up on another viewing. I mean, it was a great time. It wasn't what I was expecting. I'm putting number 19 on the Cager though, between Joe and The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, and it is a vintage Cage supporting role.
All right, Todd's at 3 stars. Zach, where you at?
Longlegs, not short legs. Longlegs. I wanted to like this movie. I think it has an interesting setup, and if it's interesting and if it's unique, it's because it reminds you a lot of 90s movies. I think the setup for this movie is almost identical to The Silence of the Lambs, and you could say that Longlegs bears more than a passing resemblance to James Gunn. And there's scenes where Maika Monroe lays out all the evidence in front of her, like we see in every single FBI procedural. I wanted to like this movie. I thought it was, what I liked about it was, I liked two things especially about it. Number one, it was big on tone. All right, it wasn't big on jump scares. It wasn't big on gratuitous shock value. Okay, I like that. I just wanted to build to something more. The other thing I like about it is Maika Monroe. I really didn't know a whole lot about this movie going in. I assumed that she was just going to kind of resume her scream queen status, which she's great at. I mean, I loved Watcher. That was one of my top 10 movies the year that came out. We all love It Follows. But I actually think she's really good in this movie in a very different type of performance, a much more subdued, almost damaged and traumatized performance. She almost has like social anxiety in it. It's a really fascinating side of that actor that I really have never seen in another movie before. So actually, I kind of leave the movie being more impressed with her than with Nicolas Cage. And I think that's the fundamental problem with this movie. Cage is in another universe in this movie. I mean, he also is a serious Matt Damon candidate for 2024. This movie is all about like a somber tone. It's about quiet longing and absence and this strained relationship that the main character has with her mother. And then you get Nicolas Cage in there, who's in a different movie. And he's got the, like Gary Oldman, Bram Stoker, Dracula makeup on. He's screaming he's singing Happy Birthday on videotape. The audience in my theater, which by the way, sold out audience on a 12 o'clock on Saturday. So they did a really great job marketing the movie. Kudos to Neon. They were laughing at that scene. There were a couple other chuckles later in the movie. And it's, Cage is probably the best and worst thing about it. I'm sure that he stoked the interest of people wanting to see this movie and made it more high publicity. But this is not the right movie to do a Nicolas Cage, I guess a stereotypical cliche type of Nicolas Cage over-the-top performance. I really would have liked to have seen him more in the subtle mode, maybe even more like a Joe Nicolas Cage. What do you think, Todd? Like, what's a good subtle Nicolas Cage? Like maybe Left
sure
Behind.
He's subtle in that, but I mean, it's not entirely just over the top. I mean, he has his moments, but I don't know. I mean, and then when he goes out of the movie too, is like, I mean, it's shocking. Like, I mean, it was not at all what I was expecting, and they keep that from you for like the entirety for like the first like half an hour. You don't actually see his face.
It's not even really Cage's fault. I'm sure when he signed on, he said, I'm doing my thing. I don't care what all y'all motherfuckers tell me. I'm going to do my Nick Cage thing, okay? I just kind of feel like Osborne Cox needed to have a little bit more aggressiveness on set with Nicolas Cage to tell him to scale it back. I thought the ending of this movie was really lame. Plot A, plot B, they come together in the end. We've seen that a million times before. I thought there were things about the FBI case I thought were really unrealistic. And I thought it was going to build to something, and it never did. It really wasn't frightening. I thought one of the other Neon releases this year, Immaculate with Sydney Sweeney, was way more disturbing, way more dreadful as you kind of reach the climax of that movie. This movie just kind of left me cold. So I give it 2 stars. I don't even remember a whole lot of it. Having seen a lot of movies the last few days doesn't help, but like there's not even really like an iconic image or moment that stands out besides Nicolas Cage just adding on to the updated freak out YouTube clip. But it didn't fit in the movie. It should have decided whether it was that or this, but disappointment for me.
I mean, I think there's a ton of memorable images. I thought it was incredibly well directed, and it's the imagery and how it's directed that makes it what it is. Like, but I guess we had different experiences watching it. Terry,
had the power gone out, that would have been fun.
It was interesting.
All right, yeah, I agree almost entirely with Todd on this one. I have it at a high 3 stars. I disagree completely with you. I think Cage understood the assignment and fulfilled it to all the expectations of putting Nicolas Cage in that role. When you give Nicolas Cage that role, you know what you're going to get, and that's exactly what you're going to get. And yes, you could put every second he is on screen in the Nicolas Cage compilation video, and it would fit because he is out of control. It is the most cagiest cager we've had in a long time. And I was here for all of it. I also saw it in a sold out crowd. I saw it 9:45 on a Friday night. And yeah, there was barely a seat available. But no, it's such an unsettling movie. Like, there's not a whole lot of jump scares, but there's a whole lot of moments that'll just make your skin crawl. starting with the opening like minute of the movie, right? There's stuff in that opening minute, and the use of sound in this movie is really jarring, and I think that's more what got me, and it pulls you in, and you've got this almost like you, from Maika Monroe, you almost have like this monotone bland performance to almost counterbalance what Cage is doing, and it works. And then you add in the direction that just kind of leads it to making it this thing. I loved it. It was a blast to watch this movie. And yeah, I'm kind of like Todd, where I'm at a high 3 stars. It could easily end up at 3.5, but that's where I have it right now.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you guys liked it. The audience seemed to like it. I'm a miserable misanthrope. I get it. I like the Cage and I like Maika Monroe. They're just in different movies. I don't know how they intersected in this movie, but it is entertaining. And I did dig, how Nicolas Cage is kind of like Leo in Inception. I mean, the mechanism by which he programs people to kill. I mean, I didn't totally understand it, but I guess that was kind of cool. And the doll thing, I don't know. I mean, to me, those were all just kind of stock horror tropes that the guy sort of threw in to sort of piece together. He was a lot more about tone than story, which I respect. But to me, the story was sort of lacking.
When was the last time we saw Blair Underwood in something? Like, I saw him like, I've seen you before. I have no idea where, because it is like his face looks like 2005.
It might be.
Yeah. I don't know. I didn't
Well,
look this up. I just am asking the question.
I also want to add something, which is I do think the theater experience is important. You know, all three of us had unique theatrical experiences with it. I was crammed in a packed 12 o'clock show that I figured no one was going to freaking be at. So maybe that impacted me. What do you have to say about Longlegs? You guys talk. I don't think there's anything interesting about the movie. Like, I really can't even remember a whole lot about it.
Well, I mean, there are certain things that they put in there, and even when there's no sound or whatever, or just like the score is swelling, it'll have like the black sheet thing with the eyes. That, I mean, I'm not going to spoil what the movie is, but like there are things like that are just absolutely terrifying. I mean, it's terrifying to watch. It's really uncomfortable, and Maika Monroe is the one that sells it to be like that, because she is very unsure and she's got really worried eyes. I thought everything about her character and how she eventually is part of it, I thought it worked, and her investigation I thought made sense. I don't know, but you know, if you don't remember and you saw it yesterday, then I can't help you.
Well, and Zach, like I think Zach was the one that said it. This movie is all about tone and setting the right tone, and if you get into that tone and you ride with it, it's one of those that just kind of hypnotizes you and just pulls you into it, and then it flashes something at you that just knocks you off your socks. And most of the time, what knocks you off your socks is whenever Nicolas Cage pops up on screen and screams at his steering wheel or something.
Yeah, he is cool. Although he drives and then also waits at a bus stop. Is his car in the shop or something?
I don't know.
I mean, it was a different time. Like, I mean, how they flat go back and forth with time is interesting too, because it's a little disorienting for a little bit.
Why is she even assigned the case? Isn't she like a rookie? I mean, that's another thing. Like the opening,
because she was able to sniff out a killer with no prior knowledge of the neighborhood. Like, she just like, he's in there. Like, she figured it out because she sensed it.
Premonition.
And then this was like a decades-long case that they're like, okay, hey, you take a crack at this.
I guess. And this was the movie that did the thing with the dates, right? The calendar that does the visual thing, and it makes a big X for some reason, or upside down triangle. I don't remember the movie ever really explaining that, but that seemed very much like a movie. That didn't seem like real life. But hey, you know, we like movies. I don't know. Maika Monroe's talented though. She's really good.
We like movies.
We like movies.
We like some movies.
All right. Well, Todd and I are giving it 3 stars. Zach has given it 2 stars. It's in theaters. If you like Nicolas Cage, you got to see this movie because it, like I said, it's the cagiest of cagers, and it's worth the watch.
We should just get a supercut of this movie with just the Cage scenes.